Welcome to Better Sex, where you get the information and inspiration to create and enjoy your best possible sex life. Join your host, sex therapist Jessa Zimmerman, as she brings you expert guests, helpful tips, knowledge, and strategies to improve your intimate relationships. And now, your host, Jessa Zimmerman.
Hi, this is Jessa, back for another episode of the Better Sex Podcast. Thank you so much for being here and listening. I really appreciate all of you who are getting in touch and giving me feedback and comments, and I would love more ideas if you want to send them about things you would like to hear, or questions if you have them. You can even record a question on the website, bettersexpodcast.com, and I might answer it live on an episode of the show. So today's guest is another coach. I find that I often talk to people who are doing coaching, whether it's one-on-one coaching or group programs, and it reminds me how much I like trying to get impact beyond what I can do in my therapy practice. Right, in my office in Seattle, I can only see a certain number of clients a week, and they have to be local and they have to be able to come to my office. And in trying to develop some way to have broader reach, that's what got me to create my online course. So it's not quite a group coaching program because sex is so personal, but I'm still looking for ways to have broader impact. I mean, that's what spurred me to do the podcast in the first place, is how do I get information and inspiration and support out there in a broader way? But the course is something where I can do some direct teaching and a lot of direct feedback and input and support. So if you're interested, I'm not exactly sure when this episode will air. I record them and then they come out eventually. But the cohort that's currently running will probably be full and done. And the next one may be starting soon. So you can always find out about that at sexwithoutstress.com/course if you're interested. So the coach I'm talking to today is Amanda Walker, and she has a podcast, but also this coaching program called Feel Amazing Naked. And we got in touch. I'm going to be on her podcast, and then she's on mine, because there's such an overlap between body image, self-confidence, and your intimate life, right? I mean, I hear this from clients all the time. If you feel uncomfortable with your body, if you're not happy, it can be really difficult to show up naked and show up and be totally open and yourself and full, like big, instead of hiding and not quite present because you're distracted with these negative thoughts. So anyway, her whole business is about helping people transform their body if they want to, but their mindset largely, so they can truly feel amazing naked. And what a gift that is for your relationship. So I hope you enjoy the conversation and get something very helpful out of it. The Better Sex Podcast is brought to you by the Sex Without Stress online course. It's a course for couples to escape the cycle of disappointment, avoidance, and pressure in your sex life. So if you're in a pretty good relationship, there's a lot of love and goodwill, but sex is your struggle, this could be for you. You work in the privacy of your own home and at your own pace to create a sex life you can both look forward to. If you want to learn more, go to sexwithoutstress.com/program. Amanda, thanks so much for being with me on the show today.
Thanks. I'm so excited to be here and have this conversation.
Yeah, this is an issue for people. Body image, self-consciousness, lack of confidence, I just hear it so much with my clients. So I'm really excited to get your perspective on this.
I know, and I'm coming hot off of a client call, actually, and this was really what was the bulk of our conversation. So it's definitely on my mind today.
Oh, really? Like how it was affecting her in her intimate relationship?
Yes, in her marriage, but also, honestly, her confidence and her connections with women as well, and just how that confidence really bleeds out to all the relationships and connections we have in life.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I mean, because, I'm so focused on relationships and sex specifically.
Sure, of course.
I know that that's connected to the whole rest of our life. Of course, you can't, separate that out, but that tends to be I get a little bit tunnel visioned around that. And sometimes I'm not thinking about the broader impacts of things. So
Yeah, it's all connected.
yeah, yeah. So the tagline here, whatever is, feel amazing naked, right? Feel great naked.
Yes.
So
Feel amazing naked.
yeah, would you speak to that a little bit? Like what, is this feeling amazing naked versus being amazing naked, or
You
why those words?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of times when we talk about body confidence and body transformation, we're focused on the look amazing naked. And so I oftentimes it's quite convoluted if we focus on just the look part. And so
Okay.
often clients come to me or maybe to other health coaches and they want the help with the look. But I think to own the look, they have to own the feel part first. And
Huh.
so I've known and had many clients and in my own journey too is like I got the look part down, right? I achieved my weight loss goals and my body transformation goals and I stepped on a scale or looked in the mirror and then I was like, oh well, and then what, right? I wasn't really feeling amazing naked. And
Huh.
so that's what really transformed what I want the outcome to be for the people I work with. Is to really feel amazing, feel confident on the inside so that it really radiates on the outside.
So do you think that people have to look amazing before they can feel amazing? Like, does one come first?
I don't. I really think it's individualized because I think that you can absolutely not be at your, let's say, quote, ideal weight,
Right.
right? And still have such a confidence that is very electric. And I think you and I have probably both met people like that in our lives. But I think it's about doing the kind of self growth and some of the mindset components that run alongside the health and the body transformation components that help really kind of create the end product of feeling.
So, do you work differently with people if they already look amazing? I mean, whatever that means to whoever, right? But
Sure.
versus the people that don't. Like some people, I mean, you know what I mean? Like, is it a
Yeah.
different program or a different approach if somebody is overweight but still just wants to feel amazing naked versus somebody that's achieved their what you're calling their body transformation goals already?
Yeah, well, I think it's all about their goals, right? I'm not here to put goals into your mouth. And so what do you want? What I want to know when I start with a client, like what is your goal? And oftentimes I do ask for clarification like, well, do you have weight loss goals? Are you interested in transforming your body? Because I don't want to make that assumption because quite
Mhm.
honestly, people are quite content at their specific weight. And that's different for all of us, but
Right.
they're like, I don't feel good. Like I look in the mirror and maybe they've lost 100 pounds already and they're like, but I still see the 310-pound girl, but I'm at 210.
Yeah.
And so how do we connect those dots? So it is very personalized. And I have plenty of women that are both in my group and one-on-one that they don't have necessarily weight loss goals, but they just have the goal to develop a stronger mindset surrounding who they are and what they want out of life.
Okay. Okay. So the mindset is one sort of path or track of coaching and work, and then the physical change would be a separate but
The
parallel track.
same. Yes,
Yeah.
parallel track. Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So why? I mean, do you believe that women struggle with this more than men? Like, I mean, I know there are men with body image issues too, although I don't hear it from them quite as much.
Yeah, I think that women do struggle more with it because the social media influence, especially now, and this kind of picturesque, I think, cultural icon that's always been put in front of us. I mean, I remember it way back when, back when I was a child growing up. So I think that there's definitely sex sells and that perfect image of, whatever that figure looks like. It definitely influences our thinking from early adolescence, which I know you talk about, similar things. And so I do think I'm specifically passionate about women because I feel like I can offer more to them because I've been in that same journey. And
Mm.
so I can speak to actually being in the trenches with them as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, okay. So obviously the media influence, right? The visual stuff we're all exposed to all the time, all that messaging comes through. Are there other reasons you think women struggle with, with with their body in general and especially with their confidence and self-image?
Yeah, I think another component of it is we're serving a lot of roles. So we're parents, we're spouse, we have a spouse, we have a profession, a career, we're entrepreneurs, and so it's in our DNA to be nurturers. And I think the
Mhm.
more we serve everybody else, the less in touch we are with our own needs and our own desires. And so I think that when we get disconnected from those things, we also disconnect from the confidence that we could have if we were really clear on who we want, or we have those more intimate relationships, whether it be with our spouse or our friendships. And so I do think that's another component of the big picture is serving others before we serve self. And so you're not really pouring into all the relationships you can in your life with as much zest.
Okay. Yeah. And that's something that's not, uniquely women, but largely a trend for women.
Yes.
Yeah.
Agree.
Okay. So talk a little bit about this confidence, because again, in my own mind, I'm separating out, okay, there's the work I might do on my own body, but then the confidence really can be a separate thing. But talk a little bit about what does that affect? How does that affect our relationships? What are all the ways it holds us back if we're not, fully stepping into that?
Yeah. I think that so many levels. It depends on, where I believe our priorities are and the roles that we're most apt to fulfill in our life, right? It looks different for a stay-at-home mom as it would somebody like you and I, entrepreneurs running a coaching practice. But at the heart of all of it is, if we are not really clear on who we are and who we're showing up, then we're never really giving the world like our best effort. So we're not showing up, in our friendships, being the best friend that we possibly can serve because we're lacking confidence in ourselves. So we're like, dimming our light. But really pertinent to you is like, we're not showing up with our spouse the way that we potentially can. And I can relate to that. Like having no self-confidence in my body definitely impacted my sex life.
Yeah.
And, when we start to take charge of our health and really make health a priority, what we're filling our bodies with, how we're moving our bodies, we start to gain that momentum and fire that leads to confidence and showing up in a more full version of ourselves with everyone else.
Yeah, as you're talking about this, I'm picturing how I feel like if I'm not fully confident, if I feel self-conscious when I'm overweight, there's you can see me on the camera, but it's like a shrinking, right? Like there's a turning in and getting smaller aspect, I think, to my energy and my presence, right? And so what we want for people is, to expand, right? Their fullness of being.
Yeah, it's that it's like the body goes into that natural protection zone, right?
Yeah.
When we are afraid of to be what we are meant to be, or we have these self-doubts, it's like the body naturally, as you were doing, like wants to protect itself and shrivel and shrink.
Yeah.
And
hide, right? Like not be seen. Yeah.
Yeah. And you physically see it, and I hear with women all the time, it's like they start to work on their self and they're like, it's like I lost this layer that was like trying to just pull me under. And sometimes it's it never really is drastic changes that we do with food, but just being intentional. And when you become intentional, then that you feel more confident about the food choices you're making, which leads to like wanting to be more active, which means to, you just feel better and you have more energy.
Yeah. Okay. So what, maybe this is selfish, but I'm sitting here thinking, okay,
bring it.
I put weight back on. Like I'm at this very point in time struggling with some of that self-consciousness and body image stuff, right? So how does one work on the mindset part of that while the physical transformation is still in process, right? A work in progress.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we all are, regardless of where we're at with our goals.
True,
but I think that the mindset component comes, it really depends on like what's your struggle really. And I love looking at the root cause, so much of our, as and clients you likely see, it's not about the food, right? Food is just a coping mechanism that we likely use because we're covering something else up. And so when we can start to look at, what it could be one of two things, I work with plenty of women who never eat because they have a fear of food or because they're busy so much they don't know how to prioritize it, or women who overeat and they're not sure why they can't connect, why is that a problem? So how do you work on the mindset? I think first you have to discover the root cause of what's holding you back from those changes you want to make. And then you really have to do a lot of self-coaching. It's like you need to take yourself out of your own brain and start to really look and discern between like the actions you're taking and the thoughts surrounding some of those actions, to start chipping away at what that looks like for you. And obviously it's a longer process, but it's becoming really clear and aware of your behaviors.
Okay, so I can see that becoming way more intentional and in line with your goals, your vision for yourself, right? What you know is healthy and stuff. That seems like that's on the body transformation side of the equation, right? What do you do with people in terms of how they gain the confidence now, how they feel amazing naked now, just no matter how they look? Like,
Right.
What does that work involve?
Well, I think too, first it comes along with accepting a journey, right? And loving and realizing that to get to an end goal, right? A goal is an outcome, and there has to be systems in place to get to that goal. And so we have to embrace that. To get to where you want to go, you also have to love every step of the way. So I'll use the example of, a lot of women, I'll use this generic one, they say they want to run, but they tell themselves the story, I'm not a runner. And so you ask them, are you a runner? And they, oh God, no, I'm not a runner. I'm so never going to be a runner. Well, guess what? The more you speak that truth, the more you believe that truth.
Right.
And so it's starting, one of the pieces like, I don't love my body, or, I hate to look in the mirror.
Yeah.
Well, we need to reroute that thought, right? The brain takes the path of least resistance. So how can we identify some of those limiting mindset components and reroute them? So instead of saying, I'm not a runner, it might be something as simple as I'm becoming a runner, or I am training to become a runner. And so constantly talking to yourself about some of those limiting words that you use that are associated with confidence, with body image, and working on rerouting the path of least resistance to carving out a new path that you begin to truly believe about yourself.
It reminds me about something. I think Emily Nagoski wrote it in Come As You Are. And she talked, I think it was in that book, she's talking a little bit about body image. And she said one of the research-backed ways to change this is to look in the mirror every day and start to pick out things you like. As hard as that might be, because our instinct is to go to all the things we don't like, but it's like, okay, I like my forehead or my earlobes or whatever it might be, but just, constantly, shift your brain into this other message, right? To start emphasizing the things you appreciate.
I agree. I call those morning celebrations. I encourage my clients who struggle with this to actually keep a dry erase marker on hand. So here's a take home if somebody's like, wanting to start working on this piece, is like grab a dry erase marker and on the mirror, create the habit of, like after I wake up and I use the restroom, get ready to go get some coffee, I am right immediately setting an intention for the day to like shift to focus and attention to positive affirmation. So it's like, what is one thing you love about yourself each morning? And you're physically writing it with a dry erase marker on your mirror so that it's a constant reminder. And so it's like by Sunday, you've identified 7 things that are fantastic about yourself. And you're like, oh yeah, I'm pretty awesome, right? And although it seems like such a minuscule thing, it's again carving out where we want to go, to be derogatory, to negative self-talk, to not talk to yourself like you would a friend, and instead saying, I'm no longer accepting that. How can I reroute into a positive place with that morning celebration to retrain my brain?
Yeah.
Hey everybody, it's Jessa, and we're just taking a little break in the show so I can share something exciting with you. At least I think it's exciting. I wrote a book called Sex Without Stress, and I had turned it into an online course, and now I've reformatted it so that you can sign up at any time. It's more like an a la carte thing. For less than $100, you and your partner can work through this entire process, guided through webinars and assignments and conversations to have and real-world exercises to use to take the stress out of your sex life. So if you're in a good relationship but sex is the issue, this could be a perfect fit. And then separate from that, you can opt into my membership group, month at a time, or you can sign up for a whole year. That's where you'll get the personal support while you're working through the process. So it comes with Q&A sessions, bonus content, some guest presenters, and a private support community like a forum. So that's priced separately so you can just participate in that when it's useful to you. Anyway, if you want to learn more, go to sexwithoutstress.com. And now back to the show.
So you mentioned root cause. What are some of the root causes that you run into in your work with clients? Like, are there categories of things that come up, or what do you find?
Well, I think it all depends on what the issue is. Root causes I often see are simple things like time management. I think that planning and time management is a component to so much of our health and our mindsets. Another root cause is understanding how habit formation actually works. Oftentimes we say we want to develop a habit. Like I was just working, a client had a simple task. She wanted to read more, but she was just saying, I want to read more, but she didn't really create a pattern of habit. So we reroute the intention. Okay, after I have pour myself a cup of coffee, I'm going to read for 2 minutes every day. So it's like start small. And so I would say, those, and then along with just root causes are definitely the negative self talk patterns, limiting beliefs are, I would say, some of the things that just come to mind right away.
Yeah. Yeah. You when you're talking about that, it reminds me of something I say to my clients a lot too. Like if they have a touching exercise or some action they're supposed to put in, to change in their relationship. And I warn them, it's like, if you go home and say, oh, we should do this thing, it's never going to happen. It's just abstract. There's no we that can take an action, but to get really concrete, like I would like to do this thing tonight after dinner, at 8:00 or something, that they can grab onto.
Yeah, I love it. I'm just finishing James Clear's Atomic Habits. I'm not sure if you've read that
book.
I
haven't read that.
It's fabulous, especially for coaches, especially for I feel like really applicable to me. He just talks about so much great little simple gold, little nuggets of information to take away. But that, he just basically says like, make the habit so freaking easy. It's like you can't not do it.
Yeah.
And so one of those things is being really clear on when it's going to happen so you can stack them, like stack a habit you're already good at, drinking a cup of coffee, with a habit that you're not so good at, right?
I don't even think of that as a habit, but you're so right. The easy, enjoyable ones, right? We don't even think about. I will link to that in the show notes. I'm going to look that up.
Yeah, it's great.
The other one I like that, if you ever read The Slight Edge.
Oh, no.
That's another wonderful book about how our small little choices that we make daily compound, just like compound interest. And so using time to our advantage to do small, right choices every single day, we end up making exponential gains over time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's one I have found motivating for myself. So when we're talking about this.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah. Yeah. So how many of your clients will talk to you about the impact of this stuff, like in their sex life, in their marriage or relationship?
I think that it's becoming more, to be honest. I think only because I'm talking about it more. It's almost like it's a door that opened that they didn't know was even available to them.
Yeah.
And so I think I'm sure, see it so much as it's this kind of, we can't talk about these things. And so then when they hear me verbally talking, because I've talked about, sex and sexuality and just, positive influence with self in the bedroom on a few other places. And they're like, oh, well, now this is a place that we can go. So I think it's becoming more frequent.
Okay. Yeah. Because certainly it comes up in my office, as a sex therapist, and people, when I'm trying to look at what's in their way of being fully expressed and connecting to each other, and body image comes up a lot.
Yeah. I would imagine.
I have to say, and it's not the kind of thing that people, you can't just wait until you have the body you want. There's got to be some sort of peace made, loving what is, or something like that allows people to connect with each other in the meantime.
Yeah. And I would imagine, I don't know if it comes up in your office, but I feel like time is one of those things too, because I experienced that in my own life. We're very intentional about our sex life, and it takes a lot of communication. And, we know as a couple too, we're both entrepreneurs, and my husband also he has a full-time job aside from that.
Oh gosh.
And if we aren't intentional with our time, then the priority, the intimacy between us slips away, and we've noticed that too. And we have to actually stop and pause and say, we haven't made this a priority. And so one of the things I know is he knows, if you wait till the end of the night, you're not going to get the best version of me. And so we've made a commitment, that's not going to happen all the time. And I hear that from clients and just women I've had discussions with too, is being intentional with your time of day, even, right?
Yeah.
When you're exhausted at 9:00 at night, when you've like served everybody else, like you're not really going to enjoy the experience then either.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're preaching to the choir here. Prioritizing that time is,
Yes.
that's the first phase of my 9, the phases
Awesome.
that I put in my book. It's like, you
Yep.
have to make that time.
Absolutely.
Right? And be intentional about it. And I ask clients this sometimes. I mean, maybe you do something similar in your coaching. I mean, I haven't actually asked them to pull out their calendar, but I ask them to reflect on what's most important to you. What do you value? And then how is that reflected in how you're spending your time? Right? Is that a total contradiction?
Yeah.
You say your sex life or your relationship matters, but like, where is it on the calendar? Right? And where is it where you expend your other resources like money and stuff too,
Oh, yes. Yes. I have that discussion too. I say, are your actions in alignment with your goals?
Yeah.
And so I have a great, I had a client who told me she didn't have any time to meal plan. And in the same conversation told me she was out all day shopping for a new Lexus. And I said, well, that's fine. Looks like you have plenty of time to shop for a new Lexus. But, if you don't take control of your health, then are you going to be able to enjoy that Lexus? So your goal or your actions are not in alignment with the goals you're telling me you have.
Right. Right. And as, I mean, I don't know if this is right or wrong, but I basically think that your actions show you what your goals and values really are. The other ones are just words if it's not backed up with what you're doing. Yeah. So, what's really important is your TV show or your friends or your Facebook scrolling, not your partner. If that's for sure. If that's where you're spending your time.
So, agreed. 100%.
Yeah.
Again, preaching to the choir over here on that one too.
A line. Different lines of work, but they totally
yes. Yes.
Any other thoughts about your work or about, feeling amazing naked and, how it intersects with sex and relationship?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest struggles that I see with clients is, living as we've heard, you've likely heard, or I use that terminology, it's just that oxygen mask mindset of like, when we serve ourselves first and we carve out the space to take care of our health, carve out the space to take care of our, our energy, spirituality, whatever you want to call it, is that it bleeds so heavily into other areas of life. And so to try to get women to put the pause button on the hustle, do kind of mentality that we often feel obligated to live is hard, but it's really worth it, because when we create the space to give ourselves an opportunity, to move our bodies and feel confident in our health, food choices, it's like all of a sudden this little ball of momentum or domino, if you will, starts to knock down all these other dominoes. And then you just get the confidence to reconnect to your spouse. And when you reconnect, like in a deep, intimate level, it's like, a sense of rejuvenation in the relationship. And I just think like there's a direct connection to spending time on you and making sure you don't let it slip too far away to all the other, levels of intimacy you share with your spouse.
Yeah, the image I'm getting, I'll see if I can put this in words, or this thought is, if we aren't doing that, if we're not taking care of ourselves, if we're walking around feeling self-conscious and inadequate or something, that's draining, right? Like that sucks energy from us. So we're probably not as effective in the rest of our lives anyway. And if we invest the time and energy into ourselves, into our self-care, into our bodies and health and confidence, that multiplies energy.
Yes.
I mean, I can just sort of feel that sitting here. Like that's, even though it takes time and energy, you're going to have more of it available for the things that matter to you.
Yes. And we have to detach ourselves from the guilt component of it. Like taking care of yourself is not selfish.
Right.
And I see it a lot in mothers, which I'm sure you probably do, is taking care of yourself is also setting a tone for your children for them to know, like, we deserve to be taken care of. Yeah. And I can be a better mom and a better wife and a better coach when I do take care of myself. So when I teach like time management, I actually say the number one thing you do in the week is schedule time for yourself, self-care. And if people are really resistant, and there's a lot of resistance to that, and I'm like, start with 15 minutes, take a hot bath for 15 minutes this week. Like that's the one thing you have to do. And then it's like, oh, this feels freaking good. Like I want more of this, right?
Minutes, right?
Yeah. And so again, it's just kind of that spiral effect.
Yeah. Any other tips for people getting started who want to, feel amazing naked, and, any other beginning pointers that you would give?
Yeah, I actually love the one that we just talked about a little bit ago, is just spending some time on morning celebrations and starting to get more comfortable with yourself
Okay.
and the things that you love about yourself. And it's going to be like, usually when I give that homework assignment, people will come back for sometimes a week or two, like I couldn't do it, or they'll just have like one thing. And you just keep facing that, because I am a firm believer, the only way is through, little Robert Frost quote, right? And so you have to do the work that's hard to get to the other side of it. And it's really, really powerful. And so when you start to love yourself a little bit, you can start to give yourself, for lack of a better analogy, give yourself more freely to the intimacy that you're after too in a relationship.
Yeah. And for listeners who might want to take the first steps towards, exercise or eating in a more healthy way for them, anything, I guess you already said, make a small habit that's totally, that you can't fail. Put it next to something you already do. Anything else in terms of a beginning step?
Well, I'm such an advocate of time management and planning, because I really think it's the root cause of so many issues. Like it helps with emotional eating. If we have a plan in place, it helps with a lot of things. So, just start to get in the habit of planning your food a day in advance. So you should have a really good idea today what you're going to eat tomorrow. And if you don't, because you haven't gone grocery shopping, or you don't know how to live intentionally with meal planning, or maybe you don't even know how to meal plan, you don't even know what your plate should look like, then that's a great time or a great note that maybe this is a place to invest in your life, to get a little bit of coaching so you do know. But so much happens. By planning 24 hours in advance, and that could be just in a journal, it could be using an app, it could be in your mind.
Yeah.
But if you're intentional to know today what you're going to eat tomorrow, then you just start to be more mindful of what those things are, and it creates that spiral of success.
Okay. I love that tip. So where can people learn more about you? Please mention the podcast as well as, programs or website or anything else.
Well, thank you. I too have a podcast, Feel Amazing Naked. So you can find me on iTunes or wherever your favorite podcasting app is. As you mentioned, I do run a group program and I do one-on-one coaching, and you can find me at feelamazingnaked.com. And there's also a free challenge, a free 7-day challenge that I encourage listeners to take advantage of. Totally free. You can go through it. It starts to expose you to kind of like what we talked about, right? The skill, the mindset, and the strategy that merges all the components together. And you get access to our private Facebook community to share kind of your aha moments from the challenge. And I do live coaching sessions in there as well.
Oh, wonderful. Great. I will link to all of that in the show notes so people don't have to write it down. So
thank you.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Such a fun conversation. So thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
You've been listening to Better Sex. Please visit our website, bettersexpodcast.com, for show notes and additional episodes.
And that's a wrap for today. I really hope you enjoyed the episode. If you are enjoying the podcast, if some of this material resonates with you and you would like to make a difference and make sure that this keeps coming out in the world once a week, ongoing, there are a couple things you could do to show your appreciation. The first would be to go to iTunes and rate and review the show. That really helps us be found by new listeners when you review the show on iTunes. You can find a link at bettersexpodcast.com/iTunes. The other thing I want to invite you to consider is becoming a Patreon. For a small monthly pledge, you get some benefits. So for $2 a month, you get advance access to every single episode. For $5 a month, you get a chapter of my upcoming new book. And for $10 a month, I host quarterly get-to-know-you and question and answer chats over the web, and you get invited to that. I would love to have your membership in that, become part of the Better Sex family. You can find a link at bettersexpodcast.com/Patreon, which is Patreon. Again, thanks for listening. I'm glad you're here. Feel free to comment, ask questions, get in touch. I'd love to hear from listeners. Thanks.